Ready to go? All right. Everybody ready? 6 o'clock. We'll go. It is 6 o'clock. Good evening. I'm Jim Welch. I'm the president of the Kingsport Board of Education. I welcome members and guests and those of you who are attending online. It's nice to have you with us this evening. We're having a special call. Whoa. Oh, good. Let's try this again. Good evening. I'm Jim Welch. Thank you, ma'am. Without Mary Beth, I would be in a lot of trouble. President of the Kingsport City Board of Education, I welcome you to this special call meeting of the Kingsport City Schools Board of Education to discuss a single item. I will call this meeting to order and ask Ms. Altizer to call the roll, please, ma'am.
Mr. Jim Welch, President.
Present.
Mrs. Julie Byers, Vice President. Mr. Todd Golden.
Present.
Mr. Eric Hodge.
Present.
Mrs. Carrie Upshaw.
Present.
Thanking all the members for attending. The item of business this evening is the approval of the press building property purchase. We have a PowerPoint on this. Ms. Altizer, is that correct?
Yes, we do.
So, Mr. Fry, you want me to take them through this, or you want to?
Sure, go ahead.
Okay, so I wanted to just take a moment to, again, make our community aware of DBXL, do some history on this project before we get to the actual purchase. And so several of you weren't on the board when this came on, and so just again want to be able to provide some historical context. So DBXL, and I feel a little in talking about this because I wasn't here when this came on originally either. But DBXL went through a visioning process that you can see here in this first slide, and it was an evolution. It started at Fort Cox and then grew into the space that we have here in the press building. You see campus, culture, content, and community. It was a way to, it's a program of choice within the Kingsport City community. It is an opportunity for students to be able to learn and demonstrate their learning in a different context than what our traditional environment allows. And so Ms. Altizer, if you just show, so in here on the second floor of the press building, our space that we have there for DBXL, you can see that we have several classroom spaces that are devoted there. We also have breakout rooms. That's our entry area in the top right. And then several of our learning spaces that we have in DBXL. If you also want to continue to move through there. The digital learning lab is the picture on the left. You see our eating space, which also doubles as our computer lab area. Would that be right, Ms. Hensley? Okay. And then just some, again, some learning spaces right there, just to kind of, for those folks who haven't been able to be in DBXL, to be able to see what that space looks like. So in 2016, we acquired the space for DBXL. That was 16,596 square feet that we acquired in 2016. We took on a 15-year lease with an annual lease amount of $171,000. We had an option to purchase. You can see lease year 1, 2, 5, 10, and 15 with buyout amounts. That lease was at interest rate of about 4%, 3.9 something, but basically 4% interest rate. The developers are selling the space that hasn't been developed in the press building to another development company. And they've approached us with the ability to acquire some more space. We had first rights of refusal on several spaces in there. And what we're going to be bringing before to you is the decision to let go of our first rights of refusal on, you'll see here in just a moment, 3 colored spaces. Red, which borders, maybe, do you mind to switch that over?
Okay.
So as Ms. Altizer is switching that over, we have a red space which borders, looks out onto Clinchfield Avenue. You can see it up on the screen now. The red space which borders Clinchfield. We have a blue space that is really in the heart of DBXL, and they've been gracious enough to allow us to store some things in there. I know that it would be a desire, an immediate desire, that if we could acquire that space to add what we didn't plan for in the development of DBXL, that we see evolving is the need for a science lab. We don't have a science lab there at DBXL. With that, am I speaking? I would want Ms. Hensley to jump in if I'm not reflecting appropriately. But it gives us a chance to add a science lab to DBXL. And then the green space, which fronts to Roller Street. While I know in my time here with the Board of Education, I think that the idea of the opportunity to expand DBXL has been something that has been a topic, but obviously this has not been a high priority to try to acquire these properties. The only reason we're bringing it to you today is that the developer is going to be selling it. They're offering it to us at a price that we would not be able to get it at any other point in time. If for some reason we would want to not develop it or whatever, we would have the ability to sell that at a later time. But we have just a window that's presented itself that we need to make a decision on. And so it's going to be, I'll let Mr. Fry talk through some of the details here, answer some of the questions, but what my basic recommendation is going to be to you is that we give up first rights of refusal on the red, and that we would be making a recommendation to acquire the blue and the green spaces. So are there, before Mr. Fry gets into the financing of it, and he'll give you the details, but of the purchase price that we're looking at, as I shared with you in our lease agreement, we had in year 5, it was like $1.4 million. We're not in year 5, we'll be at year 4. So right now, to buy out the remaining part of our lease would be $1.5 million, okay? And then the additional money would go to acquire the additional square footage there. Mr. Fry is going to present to you a plan where we could do all of that without increasing our $171,000 debt service amount. And we would just basically be like refinancing your house and extending it a couple more years and taking the interest that you, or the capital that you built up, spreading that out and being able to acquire just a few more things in this. And so he's going to share with you the method that we go about doing that, if it's the board's desire to acquire those spaces. I would tell you that if nothing else happens, that we would really need to have the board, okay, just for regular operations at a minimum. So with that, Mr. Fry, do you mind does anybody have questions?
I'm
I can
going
answer.
to ask if we hold the questions until after.
Okay. So Mr. Fry, do you mind taking through the method that we could do this, and it not increase our debt service level?
Sure, be glad to. So,
We're gonna need to turn on your microphone there. You're good.
so we currently are paying monthly lease payments of $14,250 for the space that DDE currently occupies. That's $171,000 per year is what we budget for the annual payments. We currently, in order to buy out the lease that we're currently paying $171,000 for, is $1,523,000. The green space, which is essentially 10,000 square feet, has been offered to us at $300,000. The blue area, which is a partially finished area, has been offered to us at $154,390. So to buy those two spaces and to pay out the lease is $1,977,390. I've been working with the city on
Mr. Fry, can I pause
Yes.
1 second right there? So I want you to think about, we acquired 19,000 square feet, right, in the original.
Yes.
At 1.5. Okay, we would be acquiring another 11,771 square feet. So we just about be completely doubling the size or square footage. So in the acquisition.
Yes. So the $1,977,000 is essentially the $454,000 to buy additional space and basically $1.5 million to buy out the current lease. So normally what we would do is that we would have bond monies to pay for this. The city is not going to the bond market this current year, but they have indicated to us that they can sell capital outlay notes, which would have a 12-year term. So the plan would be for the city to issue the capital outlay notes at probably an interest rate that's probably half of what we're paying now. I've calculated the interest rate on the lease, and it comes in at just under 4%, like at 3.95. We think that we can get an interest rate that is half of that at the current time on the capital outlay notes. If it were a bond issue for a longer period of time, we could probably even get a bond issue, we could probably get a lower rate than that. But for now, we need to do the capital outlay notes with a 12-year term. We would have a principal payment, or interest payment due on those in 6 months, and then an interest and principal payment due in a year from now. We could maintain our current level of funding, $171,000, to make those payments. And assuming that the city goes to the bond market a year from now, the plan would be to have the city issue bonds in the amount for us to be able to pay off the note at that point with a 12-year bond. So we would essentially be adding 2 years to, right now there's 11 years left on the note, on the lease payments. So we would essentially be adding 2 years of payments to what we're currently paying, but still maintain our budgeted amount of $171,000. And be able to acquire the additional space and pay off the loans.
And there's a chance that when the city would go to the bond market, that the interest rates that they could get on the bonds would be lower than the interest rates that we would pay on the capital outlay. And so,
Now, well, I mean, the interest rates now, I mean, I just read an article not long ago where someone had gone out to the bond market and they had gotten, I think, 1.5% or 1.25% interest rate. So, it just depends on the economics next year where the interest rates will be in a year from now. So the final payment on the bonds, if we issue 12-year bonds at this time next year, the final payment will be in November of 2033. Again, this would allow us to make the purchase without increasing the amount of money that we have in our budget, keep the same level of amount that we have in our budget, but by extending the term essentially for another 2 years. So there are 3 items that I would recommend if the board would like to pursue this. One is that we would need to approve the real estate purchase and sales contract, approve an agreement for termination of right of first refusal and purchase option, approve a termination of lease agreement, and approve a request to the city of Kingsport Board of Mayor and Aldermen to issue capital outlay notice in the amount of $2 million. Also noted that we would not be asking the city of Kingsport for any increase in funding to pay for those notes. That funding would come out of the money that's currently budgeted in our budget. So there's some more details there, but that's basically
yeah. Just trying to be very clear, because you can see that it's complex. It's letting go of a first right of refusal, terminating a lease agreement. And understand, we were already, again, I just want to emphasize, we are already obligated for 11 more years on lease payments. And so we were already going to be paying an additional 1.5. And so, so when we're asking for this is not additional money beyond that. This is settling off the lease. And so, anyway, I think we can take questions.
Yeah. So, board members have any points of information or questions?
So when you say you calculated, you estimated the interest rate, I'm confused with an interest rate on the lease. Can you explain what you mean by that?
well, essentially, if you take the $171,000 that we're paying now and multiply it by 11 years, you're coming up with an amount that's more than $1.5 million. So there's an interest rate that's built into that lease that we're paying.
Okay.
So when I do an amortization schedule and back into future value, I'm coming up with the interest rate.
But just a comment, I'm delighted by this because as someone who's, obviously purchased property in downtown, $30 a square foot is a fantastic price. And it would be it's a fantastic opportunity for us to acquire that space that we know we've wanted for a long time. So I'm delighted by this turn of events.
Ms. Byers?
And the interest rate would be a locked-in interest rate, so we don't have to worry about it being 2% next year and then 4% in 3 years, or?
Yes, the interest rate, and the city will go out for bids on the notes next week, and the interest rate on that will be a fixed interest rate. And then in a year from now, if the city does bonds then, whatever interest rate that the bid comes in for the bonds, that would be a fixed interest rate also.
Mr. Golden? Do you have any other questions?
Still thinking.
Okay. Do you have a vision for this space?
Well,
So I think that really is with the Board of Education. I can tell you that sitting here today, I've heard 3 different visions for that. Right now, I don't know that we've put all of our attention on that because we've had Sullivan North to try to reason through first. One of the things that I've heard talked about at really our last retreat that we had was the idea that if we see that DB the model for DB works, why does a kid have to wait until high school before they get to have that opportunity? So the one comment that I heard most, that I think I heard the most consistent around it is DB Junior, without having a kid, do we extend this down to middle school? And use that space to extend down into middle school. Could it be a STEM gym? Could it be all those other things? I mean, I think that those are all things for us to determine. If our emphasis is to extend DB Junior, then I think that that's what we would do. But are there other things that we're doing inside the school system that if we don't do that we can utilize that space for something else that we are looking for space to do things in? Then I think that there's plenty of opportunities for what we can do with that space that really stems off of what they do at DB currently, or within the vision of DB. So I think that there's probably 2 or 3 forks in that road that we just have to pick which path we want to go to be able to flesh that. Does that make sense?
It does, yeah. No, it answers my question. And I think you steered into my next question, which was, because we've already budgeted for this does not impact potential funding for the building, correct?
Correct. That was what we wanted to make clear with the city, is that this wouldn't impact if we went to the bond market, or I mean, this is not debt that we're already servicing this debt.
This is ostensibly just extending our monthly payments for 2 more years.
Correct.
$171,000 to take in these extra 2 pieces. of
Correct.
property.
Correct.
Do we know what the occupancy level is of the building on the 3rd floor right now? Is that the only spaces left that are unoccupied?
Those are the only spaces that are left
On the 3rd floor.
on the 3rd floor.
Have we talked to any of our neighbors about this? Like, are there any, because I know there's a bunch of businesses up here, have any of them expressed interest in any of this land or wanting any of this, or have we communicated with them at all?
We have not, because it's not, I mean, I don't know if the developers have. I mean, I would say that that's what they've come to us first, and then this would be what the developers, they said, I think it's a group, I won't say where, but I think that that's what they're selling, is the opportunity for other developers to come in and market that space.
Sure, and the red piece, if we give that up, that's those 2 pieces actually, right?
Yes, one on the other side of the hall.
That's an enormous chunk of the 3rd floor still. That leaves it.
That would be correct.
I just know there's a lot of businesses up here that look to expand, and they kind of like to know what's going on in the event that.
And the red from tax roll part is higher rent space that for the tax roll for the city on that side as well.
Right, because when we buy this, it rolls off the tax rolls.
Correct.
So this is reducing the amount of revenue that comes into the city, that's why I was saying that. But I mean, given that big red chunk, as long as the rest of the neighbors know that that's available, I don't know what the 1st floor looks like. I think the 1st floor is completely built out. And I don't know what the 2nd floor looks like, but the red space becomes a much bigger or it becomes ostensibly more expensive if we take in that piece right there. Which would also help in the event that we have surplus.
Right.
And I know they're offering very, very favorable terms to businesses as well. My dentist happened to move his office up there as well.
Right, I think it's a good deal.
Another thing that we had talked about in terms of visions, particularly for the green space, I remember early on, we talked about that currently, the way that we do pick up and drop off into DBXL is not ideal. But if we had that green space at the end, that allows us to potentially make a much nicer curve drop-off area right at the end, coming off of Roller Street, and then right there at the end of the green area. So
The other thing that's included in here that we have not mentioned, that I think that you just reminded me, is that we would acquire the parking lot. That's on the back parking lot.
The DB parking lot right now is part of the lease. The part that we had built out a couple of years ago, it is part of the lease. So when we buy out the lease, we would now own that parking.
Would we also acquire more parking space with the green portion?
So if I look at these numbers correctly, I hope I do. We essentially had, in the space where we are, we essentially had a lease that had a purchase option. And that purchase price decreased over the length of the lease. So at the end of 10 years of the lease, we could buy the space that we are in. At the end of 10 years, we could buy the space that we currently occupy for $785,300. But if we add 2 more years to our payment of $171,000 a year, we get the space that we're in now and all that's up here in the colored blocks. Is that correct?
In the blue and green.
In the blue and green, right?
Which is an additional 11,000.
Which is another 12,000 square.
So the current space we occupy, I think, a little over $100.
Yeah, yes, so right, can we close this yesterday? Ms. Bowers, did you have another question? No? Any other questions?
Very good.
Ms. Upshaw, any questions? No? She's on, I have to, jump up to see there. Ms. Altizer, could you read the recommended action for the board, please?
Yes. To approve the press building property purchase and buyout of the current DBXL lease for a total cost of $1,977,390 and approve termination of lease agreement and the termination of right of first refusal and purchase option agreement.
I have a motion on that recommended action.
So moved.
Is there a second?
second,
Any further discussion? Seeing none, Ms. Altizer, please call the vote.
Mrs. Byers? Aye. Mr. Golden?
Aye.
Mr. Hyde?
aye.
Mrs. Upshaw? Aye. Mr. Welch?
Aye. Thank you, Mr. Fry.
Thank you.
For all your work that you put in on this. We are adjourning our regular business session. We are going to take a 5-minute break, and then we will resume with our work session in 5 minutes.
Very good.
Thank you.
You think we should reflect that?
It's fine if you want to. We've got David's thing first. He's doing the quarterly report, and then you, and then Tony. Okay.
perfectly conscious of it, just not. That's just, we're gonna need to,
Yeah.
if that's the long-term solution, if there's a better audio.
Yeah.
plan.
I agree. 2 years out.
We're actually, marches, in on Saturday, so we're gonna go to the game in North Carolina versus Tennessee. Yeah. Some ended up just sitting there this season, taking 3 games. Wow. 25% capacity.
Yeah.
So, we're probably to do that.
So,
Yeah, I think there's,
Right, we're not.
okay, never mind. I mean, total, I think there's 11 games.
Oh, it's still 11?
Yeah, I think there's- I think- I think there's 6 at Carolina.
Yeah, and it came out.
We want to expand.
One's really good.
well, that's why.
She seems to be doing really well.
No, I get it.
I was trying to avoid whatever fights down the road that the city might have, taking some of that property off the.
Is the city wanting some of that too?
Oh, I don't, no.
I mean, they're getting a huge building
The
downtown.
Microsoft Office.
That whole thing's came off the road.
No, have we applied the whole thing? There was just like a parking garage underneath and everything else. The city didn't want it.
Oh. We get the whole-
I'll make just a
Huh?
go and see.
The
if
whole
they-
thing, the bank is down, covered the whole thing.
I know.
The what?
The city got the whole.
Yeah.
So, you know.
What is, yeah.
It wasn't on roll.
So are we gonna? Are we gonna lease those out?
They're sort of, so like if this is the,
What's the government?
stadium, they are kind of like right here.
That's-
This section.
That's,
And then
so
the
that's
other-
the one, okay.
All right.
Don't mind us.
Hold on.
Really.
Who knows?
Okay, thank you. Good evening, I'd like to call this work session of the Kingsport Board of Education.
Should they order March for half? Like both of them are coming.
Our first item for discussion is the quarterly financial report. Mr. Fry, welcome back.
Yes, sir. So I have for you, the fourth quarter financial update for 1920. This is basically the end of the year. Financial report for fiscal year 2020, sorry. At the, as a result of, the revenues that came in and the actual expenditures that we, spent, and with some appropriations from our fund balance for some capital projects, our fund balance actually went down this past year about $595,767. That brings our fund balance to just slightly over $7 million, $7,003,613, which is 8.7% of our fiscal year 2021 operating budget. I'll go through some details on some revenues and expenses. Kind of let you know where we came out in some of those areas. The first, one of our major sources of revenues is our BEP funds. These are funds received from the state of Tennessee for the operation of all school systems in the state of Tennessee. Our estimate was $31,833,000, and the actual amount received was 30 million. That's a typo right there. That should be 31 million. $31,809,000. Just a little less, a little over $20,000 short in BEP funds. I just put this in here. We do receive a large amount of funding for other state education funds. The majority of these monies are funds that we received from the state of Tennessee for insurance payments towards our retired teachers, which was actual amount of $349,000 and an estimate of $400,000. That's actual of revenue and expense recorded in the same amount. So that has no effect on our bottom line. In property taxes last year, we collected $17,773,000, which was just a little over $26,000 short of our estimated amount. But we were also up $110,000 from the previous year. Sales tax collections, that's one of the areas that, due to the COVID-19 and the decline in the economy in the latter part of the year, we were worried about sales tax. We actually collected $10,373,000 last year, which was about $62,000 short of our estimated amount. It was greater than the fiscal year 19 amount by $173,000, which represented about a 1.7% increase. We were afraid that we were going to come in, I won't say much shorter than that, but we thought that we would be lower than that. So the coronavirus hit in the middle of March. So a lot of the revenues that are recorded in fiscal year 20 are revenues up through March and April. So we didn't see as much of a decrease as we thought that we might have. Other county revenues are basically revenues from prior year property taxes, bank excise tax, wheel tax from Hawkins County. We came in at a little over $1.2 million in those revenues, which was about $46,000 above what we had estimated. Our tuition, we were short on our tuition estimate. Our estimate was $420,000. We came in at just over $390,000, about $30,000 short in our tuition account. I guess one of the major areas in our budget that was impacted by coronavirus was our early childhood programs. Those are programs that are fee-based programs that operate on the fees that are collected in those programs. And basically, those programs were closed when the school system closed in the middle of March. Although those programs were closed, those employees in those programs are full-time, for the most part, full-time employees. And like other employees, teacher assistants, and so forth, they were offered the opportunity to perform telework so that they could continue to receive their pay the school year. As a result of that, the revenue that was collected was just about $675,000. And the expenditures were $778,000. So you can see that there's a little over $100,000 deficit in the early childhood programs. And those were fairly evenly distributed amongst the Palmer, Washington, and Adams programs. And you could, the fiscal year 2019, we collected about $100,000 more in revenue than we did for this past year. That you can see that there's where the $100,000 shortfall came in, was the lack of that revenue. If we had that revenue, we would have pretty well broken even on our early childhood programs, which is what our goal is to do on a yearly basis. The after-school programs, those programs do generate a surplus, and even those programs did close down at the middle of March. And to be stopped on those programs, one thing about those programs is that those employees are not full-time employees. They are basically on-demand employees that work after the school hours. And so when those programs closed down, the part-time employees in those programs didn't work anymore, and so they were not paid anymore. So those programs did generate a surplus last year, just short of $35,000. So between the two programs, we were short between $65,000 and $70,000 overall. We were short in our other local revenues. Some of the amounts that are collected in our other local revenues are what we collect from the schools for operating our buses, for transportation for field trips. Obviously, when school closed down in the middle of March for the rest of the year, one of the peak seasons for field trips is in spring. And so, obviously, there was a little bit of revenue that wasn't collected there, but on the other hand, there were expenditures that we didn't incur for paying bus drivers to drive the buses for those field trips. I mentioned before that our operating surplus deficit, we were actually in a deficit of $595,000 for the year, but that is after you take into account that there was $2.4 million appropriated from our fund balance. There were slightly $1,050,000 in purchase orders that were carried forward from the previous year that came out of the fund balance. We had appropriated $115,000 for a school bus to be purchased in 2020. We also, at the beginning of the year, appropriated just over $1 million to replace the Robinson Middle School roof. And then during the year, we made an additional appropriation of $120,000 to buy a special education bus and $148,000 to replace our student information system. So, so we could have been a much greater deficit, seeing that we appropriated a little over $2.4 million from our fund balance. And one of the reasons for that is that our expenditures in our budget came in at about 97.2% of our total budget, which was $2,283,000 in dollars. We figure that 2.8%. And some of the areas that we were under in, we generally see salaries and benefits come in less than what was budgeted. Amounts that are allocated out to individual schools that were unspent was about $75,000. We have some technology funds remaining. One of the large areas that we saw a significant savings in, two parts, three parts. One is our energy savings program. Our utilities expenses were $485,000 less than budgeted. As I said, part of that's due to our savings programs that we've implemented over a period of years. The winter was a mild winter last year, plus we put school back in the middle of March. Our vehicle expense came in about $50,000 less. Our early childhood programs and our SAC programs, even though we did continue to pay some of those employees, the operating expenses other than salaries were stopped. Transfers, some of that is due to funds that were transferred to the city because of SROs, because the schools closed down. The SROs didn't work for us anymore, they went back out on patrol on the streets. And so therefore, the police department picked up those salaries. And we were a little under about $50,000 in capital outlay expenses. I won't go into the calculation I have down here about our fund balance and how we change from one year to the next, but we did, in the year, our fund balance went down from about 7.6 million to a little over $7 million. And as I mentioned, it's at $7,003,000, which is right at about 8.7% of our 21 operating budget. And the 3% guideline that we work with from the state of Tennessee, and 3% of our 21 budget is just about $2.4 million. So our amount over the 3% is just at $4.6 million. That's really the basic stuff that I have for you, so I'd be happy to answer any questions if I can.
Questions, comments, Ms. Lowry?
I have a few questions.
Okay.
I'll just ask one at a time so it's easier for me to keep track. So why was the tuition short? I would think that we would budget that in, the kids would come, they would pay, so why would that be so far off?
I have to go back and look at the numbers, but I mean, that's just the numbers that, I mean, when you're looking, depending upon whether those are county, other county students or Sullivan County students, some of those rates change, but there will just be tuition students than what we had estimated that there would be.
Looks like about 21 kids left from the calculation, roughly.
It could be, if you had some kids that say from Washington County, those are $3,000.
Oh, that's true.
So,
A couple dozen kids possibly, or less.
yeah, so.
Okay, so I'm a little surprised that our vehicle maintenance would actually be down since we were running our buses pretty much nonstop all spring, delivering meals everywhere. So is
Yes.
that really accurate, or are we going to have a surprise?
No, that's accurate. We're generally under budget, our vehicle expense. The city gives us the number that we need to budget for that. And they're pretty conservative in giving us that number. Our vehicle expense is generally down below what's budgeted. We budget what they tell us, and I feel like sometimes that would be budget less than what they actually tell us. But you're correct that we do rent a bus, and that's one of the things that they take into consideration too. They know how much we rent on buses. When I've talked with the fleet manager down there on several occasions. Like, maybe you're really running the buses. Yes, I do. And so,
Those buses were a lifesaver for a lot of families.
Yeah.
Just finding some.
well, and consider too, though, that during the springtime, when we were running the buses for those meal deliveries, we weren't running them before and after school, 2 runs a day in the morning, 2 runs in the afternoon. to take kids back and forth to school.
You still have half the number of rides.
So
Yes, they
we
want
probably,
one
we
versus
probably
two,
let
so-
them rent them less, and plus we work on the field trips. So,
Except on fuel. Two more, one easier, one maybe harder. So the salary and benefits, for that to be under as well, considering, I thought we were paying most of our staff, so where would that come from? Why was it
that's,
so big?
that's due to when positions are vacant. It's due to we budget salaries and we budget for a 30-year teacher with a master's degree, and that teacher retires, and they get replaced with a 3-year teacher.
Well, like last, so an example, what would be like, Christian Warner, who you met at the last one, when Lori North left that position. That position went unfilled. So we had it budgeted, that position went unfilled for the remainder of the year until July.
Okay.
And so that salary was budgeted there, but it went, we just didn't fill it. And so what we budgeted, that would be an example.
We budget for our position to be filled all year long. And not really competitive, but there's not a single day in the school year where we don't have a vacant teacher assistant position.
Yeah, teacher assistants are a lot,
I
I mean, a lot of them
knew
are
we
teacher
said we were
assistants.
covering salaries and stuff during
Yeah.
the shutdown, and that's seeing that number, I just want to make sure
Yeah,
that.
teacher assistant
There's
positions stay, are vacant quite a bit, and so
So
we're,
we generally see, in our budget numbers, I generally do not go back in and say, okay, now I know that these 5 teachers have announced that they're going to retire, and so let's lower our salary budget by $100,000. It is easily that you can say $40,000 on a teacher turnover.
Just want to make sure people don't just come screaming in.
Yeah.
Right.
So my last question is actually a follow-up question. And that was, in our last review, you made a comment about we had to refund AP test dollars. And I
Yes.
asked why we had to do that, and then you said you would follow up, and just following up.
Because, and I did check on that, this year, the AP gave a one-time exemption to allow for refunds because of coronavirus. And I did check on that, but it was a one-time thing for this past year.
There you go. You need to follow up, but then we had seen each other, so I
Yeah.
wanted to make sure. So, all right, I have no more questions, sorry, thank you.
Mr. Heiss, your microphone is on, no questions. Mr. Golden?
Do you have any idea what, this year's gonna look like? Have we got any numbers of sales revenue?
I've not really had a chance to look at it. I'm hoping that it's, I don't think it's going to be terrible. I've not,
The Pinnacle was closed for a lot of that time, and you drive by and it's not open at night.
right.
I don't drive by in the afternoon, but I know that's all sales revenue that comes in, tax revenue, so.
There is. I will be, giving you it's the latter part of September now, so the first quarter's gonna end here next week. So here in about a month or so, I'll be giving you a first quarter update. And really in that first quarter update, the big thing to report to you is how sales tax is doing. So the county commission, and we do know, did not affect the tax rate. The Sullivan County Commission did not affect the tax rate for schools, so we should be good with our property tax estimates. I think our BEP estimate may be a little high since it was based on the April estimate, but not hundreds of thousands, tens of thousands, $10,000, $20,000, $30,000. So the big variable is going to be your sales tax this next fiscal year.
So is the sales tax remitted by the state collected like at an Amazon level? Is that in this budget already? Can we see that broken out, or is it just all part of the?
That's not part.
And do we have an idea? Because Amazon did this during COVID. Just went straight up. So we should be getting sales. I pay taxes when I buy off Amazon.
Right, right.
I'm just making sure that that's actually coming down to us, and the state's not
Yes,
retaining it.
I believe it is.
I know that that's a big discussion. Internet sales tax is a big discussion at the state level as to whether it's point of sale or, whether it's point of purchase.
I mean, is there a way to actually pinpoint and say when those checks come in, or they come to the city and then the city remits them to us, or how does it actually flow?
The sales tax goes to the county trustee's office.
Okay.
And they and then half of that money gets distributed to the jurisdiction of where it was raised. So what was raised in the city of Kingsport goes to the city of Kingsport, 50%. The other 50% of sales taxes that are collected in the county get distributed to those education systems based upon their average daily attendance.
Okay.
So we get a check from the county trustee
Okay.
for $1.
But it's just thrown in under sales tax. We have no,
But we do have sales tax reports that come from the state, but it just tells you how much was collected in Sullivan County, Kingsport.
I got you.
Ms. Upshaw, do you have any questions or comments?
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Brown, appreciate it. Mr. Sewell, you're gonna come tell us we don't need to fix anything, right?
Everything's good.
Everything's good. Welcome.
Okay. Mr. Sewell, is this your first presentation since coming in the position?
First one. Yeah.
All right, so this is a chance, so everyone, David Sewell, we're excited to have David. He comes to us with a wealth of experience and, has been a great addition to our team. So thank you for the work that you're doing, Mr. Sewell, and this is a chance for you to get your face in front of the board here, so again,
Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity to share some of what we've done this past few months since the schools have been closed. That being said, I'll jump right into it. Thank you. I'd like to start off with a little bit of safety stuff here. You see up in the upper left-hand corner, we received about, since January 1st, we received about 3,200 work orders, and closed over 3,000 of those, with about 95% work complete. I think we try to maintain about a 94-95% on that. And down in the bottom left-hand corner is kind of a breakdown of how those work orders came in, kind of which craft they fall under. As you can see, 14% of our work orders is ground work, which is mowing, tree trimming, things like that, anything to do with the grounds. And plumbing, HVAC would be second, and of course electrical and some of the others following after that. I guess I'm most proud of the upper right-hand corner. We've managed to complete 95% of our work orders with 0 days of lost time due to injury. Guys and gals are working safe and doing a good job of that. And I'll jump into some of our capital projects. As before mentioned by Mr. Fry, the Robinson Roof project that was completed a little later than expected due to a lot of rain this past spring. They got behind on it, but it did complete in early June. Another capital project was at Dobbins Bennett, the cafeteria line replacement. That we did that. We were able to get started a little early on that, just with the kids not being in school, but we kind of we waited on that a little bit to see if went back and forth, the school was going to start or wasn't going to start. So we did get an extra week on that. But, as you can see in that picture there, all new lunch lines. We had to do some work to the drains and the floor. You can see some concrete areas in the floor that we had to replace some drains. We got into that. Another capital project, I think the last 2 summers, we've done some window replacement at Lincoln. This has been a project that, we replace 6 or 7 windows each summer, to eventually replace them all. As you can see, the windows that are in there now are wood or rotten on the bottoms, and, going back to some, vinyl windows back into place, metal windows. There we go. Palmer Center, they had some issues with some mulch around this playground here, the dinosaur you see there. There was they continued to get rode up for mulch not being as deep as it needed to be. And so this summer we went in and had a company come in and put some rubber mulch down there. We've seen the pictures of rubberized mulch just kind of bonded in place, which made it really nice. It matched the other side of the playground. There was a big project for us this summer that was completed, the ADA parking for the track at Dawkins Bennett. You can see the pictures are on the left, the wall going up. That was the most time-consuming part of it, getting the wall up. Then over on the right, you can see the finished product there. Added 6 parking places. You haven't been up there, it's very nice spot for it. Here's another a project, capital project that we did over at Adams Elementary. One part of their playground had some grass in it there, and she asked that we do some concrete work. We poured about a 30 by 80 piece of concrete right there, and has a couple of basketball goals. Due to COVID, we've not had the opportunity to hang any basketball goals up yet, but we do have holes in place and ready when they give us the okay. I think this is the last capital project I had in here. Floor over Dawkins Bennett, in the sped room, the tiles were, for whatever reason, I guess due to age or whatever, moisture or something, they started to come up and break up. So we put down an LVT flooring in the room, which was very nice. A lot of people really liked. A lot of people want to get floors now. Now I got a few slides here on some maintenance projects we did, our maintenance guys. This is in the cupola at Severe. The picture in the left, it's kind of hard to tell in this picture, but there's some rotten floor joists right there. And we went over on the right-hand side, we added some supports, added that column you see there, and support across the bottom to help support some of that rotten wood. That was recommended to us by an engineer, local engineer, to put that support in. Here's a few pictures of some light replacement we did in the dome. I love that picture.
I hate heights.
That is terrible. We have to get a special lift to come in. That's about 80 feet. We've done that twice since I've been here. We've come in and it's hard to find the opportunity to get in the dome when we can have a few days to get in there and do some work. So we've got a week to replace as many lights as we could.
I think we have a volunteer for the next time, Todd's willing to do
Yeah.
that.
You can tell Ricky, John, and Tony, thank you very much.
Yeah, they jump in there and have no problem with it.
We can spin it around for you too.
In this project too, I'll say, is we are trying to eventually have LED lights in all our schools, and when we do light replacement, we do replace with LEDs, and that's what we're doing here. You go in the dome and look, the next time you'll see the yellow lights and the new LEDs, you see a big difference. But eventually get them all replaced.
Is there a hard question here? Is there a reason we have that equipment, we don't just replace all those bulbs at the same time?
Well, just the time constraints, having time to come in the dome. There's very rarely that we have more than a week's time to go in there and do somebody on the dome to practice or events. So in a week's time, we can probably do, we could barely do a fourth of those lights in a week.
Wow, thank you. Good to know. I know how to answer that question.
When you change out go from a standard fluorescent light to an LED, you have to remove the ballast and some wiring. You know, like I think it's just a light replacement, but it's not, so it takes a little time. Here's another job the maintenance department did over at Dobbins Bennett, in the pottery room. You can see the two pictures on the left of the cabinets along the bottom there were pretty bad shape. They wash that floor down when they do a lot of their work in that room. The water on those cabinets that come in there really messed up the doors and things like that. So we took them all out, replumbed, and put some stainless steel sinks in, repainted the walls. Here's the job over at Jefferson Elementary, condensation tank, which I hadn't learned what that is, but that is a tank that all the condensation from the boiler and some other things all run into this tank and it's stored there and it's used back if needed from the tank. But you can see just over time, the bottom of it's rusted out pretty bad, and our guys were able to do this job on their own, remove the old one and put a new one in. We did have to contract a little bit of welding on one of the pipes, but other than that, they took care of it. Here was a closet we added on. This is for the nurse in that this office and for IT. They just didn't have enough room for all their equipment, so we come in and add a closet and one for IT and one for the nurse to keep her stuff in. Here was a project. I think that playground at Kennedy is new. It was put in last year, and for whatever reason, there was a lot of drainage issues around it. We had reached out to some folks about getting that fixed, and didn't make a lot of progress. So we just took it upon ourselves to go over, and we dug out all around both sides of that, put drainage in there, some gravel, come back, put sod back over it, and it's working really well. The kids were having a hard time getting onto the playground when it rained. It rained the day before, just for the puddling around it and stuff. So turned out pretty good. And anytime I mention what we do over the summer, I'll have to mention mowing. Mowing is a big part of what we do all summer. We take, usually got 4 mowers, and it takes about 4 days a week. We start sometime in April and usually stop sometime in October with mowing. So it's about a quarter of our staff is mowing throughout the summer.
And I want the board to know that each, and Mr. True includes this in our, as we consider our budget, at least for the last 2 years, contracting our mowing has always been something that we explored, because we know that if we can contract our mowing would allow, as he said, a quarter of the staff is just tied up in mowing grass. And that if we could contract our mowing, then that would allow them to move to other maintenance projects. It's never been something that we've been able to make work in our budget yet, but that's something that is on our radar, that if we can find a way to make that happen, that would increase capacity to the maintenance staff to be able to take care of those.
So how many mowers, I mean, how many people is it? You're running 4 mowers,
Yeah.
so it's 4 men?
Yeah. And
Or people.
Do you have any women on the mowers?
no.
Okay, that was correct. It has their names listed
I'll add that not only would it give us our 4 guys in maintenance to do maintenance work during the summer, but also our custodians, they do all the weed eating and trimming trees, things like that. That was also included in that outsourcing mowing and weed eating, which would allow our custodians more time in the building also throughout the summer. And the big thing too with these 4 men right here, when we take on north, I think it's about 70 acres, something like that. So we're gonna have to increase that staff or outsource the mowing.
I'm glad you brought that up, because that's, I think, something that's lost in there, that when we acquire that property, that there's some things that are gonna have to be thought through and included in taking on that property and maintaining that many acres, there.
They're around pocket with,
Yeah.
rather than a mower. That's a lot of space for their mower.
Moore's is almost a full-time job in itself.
Seriously, that's huge.
I think they have a couple of people that work full-time staff there now. From the yards and
Have we bid out any of the contracting to take a look at it, or just send out for bids to see?
Oh, for North?
No, just for.
But just for, yes, I mean, so Mr. True, Mr. True is the one that, well, and you may have gotten it to Mr. True, but ballpark, what does it cost to contract mowing?
I think that, I came in right at budget time, and there was something in the budget last year, including, I want to say not including more.
Not including, correct.
It was about $120,000.
Over $100,000, not including more. But that would cover all of the mowing, the weed eating, the trimming, and that's one of you mentioned that's one of the things that really is a time eater, not just for the four guys, but all the custodial staffs that do all that work around the schools. We're having to pull them out of doing their work on a regular basis to go out and weed and do all those sorts of things. So to be able to do all that, have uniformity in the coverage, was about 120 plus what we would have to do for.
So is that what we calculated it would cost us, or is that what somebody actually put in a bid for?
Some of that, it wasn't an actual bid, but it was some preliminary estimates that we asked for.
Yeah, and there's some liability that would come off the table with that, when mowing, also some, safety things too, with, did you see some of the banks and some of the things that we mow are concerned to us too, so.
I heard all the superintendents and assistant superintendents were going to take a day and at all the schools. That'll give them downtime to think about everything going on.
That is my good thinking.
So I heard that was in the plan.
Sounds good.
We can argue.
Well, I'm thinking if I'm a high school kid, this is a good little, hey, I'll take this and mow that, and you can pay me this. It's a good little summer job for some kids.
Yeah, we're looking into some of that.
We need to get the robot the city has to do those things.
The robot.
That little yellow robot mower thing, I want that job.
Yeah. Just a couple more slides here. I wanted to mention some of the things we've done to the schools this summer for kids to come back around the COVID-19. We've added we added a lot of hand sanitizer stations throughout all the schools. We added some things called sneeze guards, basically a piece of plexiglass we put up in front of, we put them in libraries and the front offices, cafeterias, places where there's any interaction between maybe a student and an adult. We've had to do some traffic flow stuff around social distancing, especially around concession stands, things like football started back. We had to go into the stadium and put down some directional tape, and we had to add plexiglass over the concession stands, and also some cones to keep people on some sort of a line for social distancing. Some clinic modifications, all those cabinets you see in that picture are new. A lot of the clinics were pretty small in schools, and in order to maintain 6 feet between a sick student and the nurse, they had to move to bigger rooms, and we had to equip those rooms to be a clinic. So that's some of that work. We added a lot of water fill stations. We turned off all water fountains, added water fill stations in schools so they could fill their water wells. And the last thing there was we hung a lot of plexiglass. And a couple slides of custodians. Their summer, a lot of refinishing floors, stripping, waxing, things like that. We had some extra time this year to get outside and do some pressure washing. And like I always mentioned before, the weed eating, the yards and ground stuff, trimming trees, things like that. And the big thing for them, really was just cleaning schools from March up until really till summer, keeping things clean. Even though school was out, we had a lot of folks coming into the schools, picking things up, whatever other reason, cleaning the kitchen every day to feed students, things like that. So they went through and cleaned every day. In this picture here at the bottom, you can see we purchased some sprayers to help them with that. Really sped things up as far as disinfecting the room. These are kind of the fine wheels you can come in and spray everything down with. But just now, even their job is just daily wiping down touch points, doorknobs, and handrails, things like that, light switches. It's just a constant go of wiping those things. Over on the left-hand side there, you can see that's a list of all the folks who are head custodians in our school.
What kind of chemical do we put in the sprayers?
We've got a chemical called BNC-15, some we buy from Spartan Chemical.
What's it based on?
It's a disinfectant. It's something that we just switched to this sometime about 3 months ago. It's very similar to what we've always used as far as what it does, but it does have a fragrance to it to assure that our folks are cleaning the area like they're supposed to. When you walk in, you know that the area's been clean.
I wanted to mention, I was able to visit the schools when they first opened back up to the students. And I was overwhelmingly impressed with how clean and ready those facilities were to accommodate the students. I tried to get to the custodians in every building, and I may have missed one, but I know these people are doing unbelievable work right now, keeping the buildings as clean as probably humanly possible. And just the sheer looks of the building, it was just, there wasn't one I walked into that I don't think I could have not have eaten off the floor. They were just that pristine.
Yes, the one thing I'll say in my short time here is I give a lot of credit to our custodians and our maintenance staff, just with their experience. Most of us been here 20 and 30 years working, with their work ethic. A lot of them take a lot of ownership in the buildings. It's called my school, not the school, and they do outstanding work.
Yeah, it was absolutely awesome, and pass that on down, on around, and it's also a significant advantage of the leadership that you're providing. And just speaking for myself, I appreciate it very, very much. Thank you.
Before, and this just gives me a chance to say publicly what I probably should have been able to say before too, but what I remember specifically in the interview process, like Mr. Sewell, that his wife is an educator, not in our school system, but his wife is an educator. And him understanding the role that maintenance and custodial plays in the instructional process, he's gotten to hear, he described how he would hear from his wife who would come home and talk about how if the air conditioner was broken, or if the floor was dirty or anything, that he saw the role that maintenance and custodial played into the instructional process. And that was one of the things that really just sold me right there, is like the person that understands that to educate a child, we all have a role to play. That if one part doesn't do that, it affects us all. And so just incredibly grateful for the lens that you bring to that and the leadership that you provide. And I appreciate you saying that, because it sparked that opportunity to say this too, is that again, he has that lens to know how we all play into educating a child.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Thank you for the support. Thank
For
you.
everything you've done.
Dr. Robinson. Chair is yours, sir.
Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity to come talk to you about technology for a little bit. I'll try to keep it short. So I guess we can get started. There we go. All right, so the first thing I want to do is just kind of restate our mission. It's on the website. As always, our primary mission is to work with C&I, make sure that their vision for teaching and learning technology for the students is there, as well as providing a robust network and computer systems for faculty and staff as well. Since January 1 until the end of last week, the help desk has taken in about 5,900 tickets. And we've closed 5,500 of those. And you might wonder, okay, well, why is there a discrepancy of 400 tickets there? Well, some of those are project tickets. Some are tickets for things that we've got that we're waiting on parts to come in and get repaired. So some of those tickets will always linger there just because they're project things. Like we might have somebody put in for a media request that's maybe a month out, so we're holding on to that ticket. So that's our help desk. Our completed projects for this year, we've had quite a few major projects. The first one was our virtualization upgrade. We've moved from VMware to Scale Computing, and we did that for a couple of reasons. One was cost effectiveness. The other one was part of the fund, the scalability. It allows us to have a better disaster recovery plan in place for the future, and it allows us to grow that plan. I'll talk about that a little bit later in what we're looking at for the future. We upgraded our primary firewall for our internet connection. We implemented the ClassLink suite. A lot of people have seen it, the Launchpad part of it, which is the single sign-on, but there's two other pieces to that that's on the back end that allows us to do some automation around user account creation and rostering students into certain applications so that all that's automated. It's not a manual process like it used to be in the past. Another really big one is the external Wi-Fi. We should have, as of today, they were trying to finish up Adams, and that would have been the last location other than this building. Signage has been, we're putting signage up at all of the schools. I think most of that's already up as well. So I think that's one that we're really happy with.
You mind to expand on that just a little bit, because I think that we could gloss over that. So for our families that don't have internet connection at home, we had talked about this a little bit, that to be able to provide them connectivity, we've made all of our school parking lots hot. Okay, so
Yeah.
You mind to expand on that? Just a little
Yeah,
bit?
so basically what we've done, we've purchased some external outside capable access points and tied them into our network. And each of those access points have a 180 meter radius of signal. And what we've done was we went through and we pinpointed areas on the building to be able to cover the largest parking lots for each school. And we've placed those external antennas right there by those parking lots.
We're also putting a sign there that just is kind of like, this is the hotspot station. So we're drawing people to those locations.
Now, the one thing is that a couple of schools will have 2 access points just because of the size. DB, right now we have 2 at DB, we have 2 there's going to be 2 at Adams. So based on the way the school was laid out and the size of the parking lot, maybe the distance of the parking lot from the school, we added an extra AP in those locations. And I think, and another thing we've done is we've put security on it to where right now, at this point in time, the only devices that will be allowed to connect to it will be a Chromebook. Should we have to go fully virtual again, we can open that up to like teacher laptops and things like that. And we've pushed that out to the Chromebook so they don't have to do anything when they pull in the parking lot. They should just be able to open it up. It should connect straight to KCS hotspot and let them right on
Do we know how many people have availed themselves of that? Do we have any way of tracking the single user?
We can once we get monitoring on it. And we're literally today finishing the installs. But yeah, we will be able to have some visibility into what's going on.
That's part of why we wanted to do the technology update today, was to be able to get that information out. That we were now officially equipped to be able to do this. We had talked about this being the plan, but we now have the plan in operational stage now.
We've put video intercom systems at all the main entrances to the buildings. We upgraded every computer on the network, all the Windows computers to Windows 10. We are implementing an EFAX solution and getting rid of the analog fax lines. We implemented a new work order system, which is Incident IQ. One of the really big ones we were involved with was the SIS conversion, or Student Information System conversion to Aspen. We have worked with David's group, Mr. Sewell's group, and Teleoptics, and we've extended our fiber connection we've extended a fiber connection out to the soccer field house. So we now have connectivity all the way out to the soccer field house, and the plan is to put an external antenna out there as well, and as well as internal Wi-Fi inside the building. We've implemented, from a kind of a management standpoint, we've implemented a change management policy or procedure. So now we are using a part of Incident IQ, a module within Incident IQ, to track all of our changes to all of our production systems with an approval process before they're put into place. So the engineer that's working on it will put the request in. They'll have a rollout plan, a backout plan, should something go wrong with it, and it goes through an approval process before it's ever implemented and put into production. And so far this year, we've replaced 141 teacher laptops. So this next slide is just a couple of pictures around some of those projects. The one on the left is the new scale computing environment. The one in the middle is the new WAN connection over transportation. The one on the far right, it's kind of hard to see, but that is one of the wireless access points. That one's over at Robinson Middle School. And then obviously follow it, Aspen and ClassLink. We've also completed some E-rate projects this year. Some category 1 and some category 2. On the category 1 side, we've upgraded our internet connection, our main internet connection at DB from 3 gigabits per second to 5 gigabits per second. We've added transportation onto that WAN link as well, so now they're tied into the wide area network with all the other facilities. That allowed us to put the same phone system, the same phones out there, and get them tied in just as if they're setting up one of the schools. We've also upgraded the Wi-Fi and the network switches at Dobbins Bennett, John Sevier Middle, Robinson Middle, and at Coropon. That was all category 2 of E-rate. One-to-one update. We changed our provider from Acer to Lenovo, so all the new 6th grade and 9th grade devices that we purchased, and as well as 3rd grade devices that we purchased, are now Lenovo's. One of the big selling points for that is we got a 4-year unlimited accidental repair on those devices. So there's no charge to repair those devices if it is an accident. Kind of hard to prove that it's not an accident, but it has happened. So what we do is when we get it in, we send it back to Lenovo, they repair it, and send it right back.
So a kid loses a key, that's an accident.
If they can, and the way it was sold to us is it's very hard to tell if they actually pried it out. I mean, that happens. If they just lose it, that's not considered. That's considered an accident, no replacement.
Okay.
Yeah.
And have we started using this warranty yet?
Yes. We have had a couple where they charged us because they could tell it wasn't an accident. But for the most part, they repaired them and sent them right back.
So when we get these back and they bill us for it, we have a line we can detect it and we send it on to the student, or do we eat that?
If they charge us for it, it would be an obligation just as it was to the student with the Acers as well.
Is that price lower than what we used to charge to fix it?
It's roughly the same. For the most part of Chromebook, the displays are pretty, if I could say it's a display, they're pretty much the exact same price. There might be $5, $10 difference here and there, but it's not that much.
Have we disseminated that, or do we just let the kids bring it in and we adjudicate it as it comes through?
Oh, they know that there's an obligation if they,
No. Do they know that there's an accidental replacement? Some kid may be holding on to a beat up laptop because it should have been.
well,
Well, I guess it depends if it's a Lenovo.
If it's
This
a-
replacement's only for the
Oh,
Lenovo.
this is only for the
Yeah.
new, only for the brand new ones that just rolled out.
Sorry.
So in 1920, for sixth and 12th grades, we purchased 3,167 Chromebooks. That's for last July and this July. On the one-to-one side, we have roughly, we have 500, or 5,488 Chromebooks on the one-to-one. Another thing that we've done this year is we're replacing a lot of the iPads, and we're replacing them with Chrome tablets. So basically, it's like an iPad, but the Chrome OS. And one of the reasons for that was, having continuity of operating system for the students when they come in at kindergarten. They have a Chrome operating system that they're learning on in class all the way through senior year. And I wanted to show this too, because I thought this was really, really neat. This is actually Mrs. Smith's kindergarten class at Lincoln using the Chromecast in class. I like the look on the little guy's face. He looks like he's planning to take over the world. But I thought this was really cool to see them actually using them out.
Little girl behind me, she's hard to work too.
Yeah, she is. So, some of the goals that we have and some projects that we want to do going forward, we're planning on converting all of our analog lines, all of our copper lines that go to the fire panels, the alarms, and the elevators to cellular. We want to put Wi-Fi on the buses. I have ordered 5 so far. So once those come in, we'll be getting those on the buses. With E-rate, next year, we're going to be upgrading all of the internal fiber connections inside the building, at the middle schools and at the high school. We want to expand scale, and this is kind of what I was talking about earlier, of the scalability and what we can do, and it really helps us from a backup standpoint and from a disaster recovery standpoint. We want to add one of those devices at another location, say in this building. We can then take snapshots and replicate all of our servers that we have on that environment to this building, and we've got a backup on it in two locations. That would have been a lot more expensive and a lot more difficult to do with VMware. With scale, it's really easy to do. And we want to continue to migrate all of our existing servers over to scale. What we want to do is be able to shrink our footprint, which should save us on heating and cooling, or on cooling and power in the data center. On the instructional side, we're wanting to get as many interactive panels in as we can where they're needed, and where maybe interactivity is not fully needed, get some LCD displays in there, and use some technologies like Divi, which is a device that plugs into the TV and allows you to annotate from like a Chromebook or an iPad or something as you walk around the class. So it gives a little bit interactivity for the teacher, and you can also install the app on each individual Chromebook, and the teacher can say, okay, you can put yours up on the screen now, and they can actually work on it that way. And then the plan is to purchase another 150 teacher laptops, and the reason for that is I want to move us into a 3-year refresh cycle for all of the laptops.
What applications are we running on server?
What applications?
On scale?
We're still in the process of migrating to scale. Some of our ClassLink stuff is running on the scale environment. That's pretty much it for the most part. We've got a domain controller over there, and we're starting. We actually talked today about the plan of continuing that migration. Eventually, I'd like to have almost everything on there. It's what I'd like to do.
And it is, what are the things that are still on VMware that you're?
No, I don't think we have anything on VMware left. We've migrated a lot of that stuff off. We still have a lot of physical servers that can be virtualized. Those are the things we want to get rid of. So we can shrink that footprint.
Yeah, what kind of things are? I guess what I'm asking is like, what software applications are we running on servers?
Skyward is one that we would want to migrate. As a matter of fact, we've already built a new Skyward server on scale with a new version of the operating system. but we've got to do the data migration, and we want to work with Skyward and with the city for downtime and everything, get that one. So that's one thing. What we want to do. And the one thing that I want to bring up as I go to the last slide, which is the picture of the team, everybody in the technology team. And I wanted to save it to this part is, we saw that list of all those projects that we did, right? But I would be remiss if I did not mention the amount of work that the team put in over the summer, especially in the last couple of weeks before we started school, to get the devices ready to go out to the students for both RCL, third grade, fourth grade, and fifth grade, where they normally don't have a device at home. They put in countless hours. They worked very hard to get those out there. And if I didn't mention that, that would be a shame on me, because they worked very, very hard on that.
Well, and it gives me a chance to say to you just publicly, thank you, because I know that we took that down to grade levels that we didn't intend. And it was pull out every device that will turn on, reboot it, reformat it, whatever, because we've made purchases of Chromebooks that still haven't arrived. I mean, and so it wasn't like we could buy those and those be here the next week. The Chromebooks that we purchased with we were talking about this morning.
Mm-hmm.
When do we anticipate those?
The purchase that we made in July for our regular sixth and ninth grade devices, we received the ninth grade devices really early, but we were put on back order on the sixth grade devices. As of yesterday, they're supposed to be here at the end of October. Initially, we were told end of November, so that's good. They've upped it to the beginning of October. The ones that we ordered for third grade with the Chrome tablets and the Chromebooks, we're still probably looking at end of November, 1st of December.
I talked to a director just yesterday as well, that they ordered 5,000 devices, 5,000 Dell Chromebooks, and he had just been notified that they wouldn't get them until December. And so those are purchases that you made to try to get through these times, and by the time you get them, who knows what it's going to be like by then.
And it's every manufacturer. Dell, HP.
Yes, I probably shouldn't have said the manufacturer, because it's not that Dell's going to want to do it.
The demand for them has just been.
Well,
Supply chain issues.
There was one particular, Lenovo told me there's one particular chip that every manufacturer uses in Chrome. It's a Chromebook specific chip. Nobody can get them from the manufacturer. That one chip that was holding everything up.
Any other questions or comments for Dr. Robbins?
Yeah, real quick, Aspen,
Yes.
do we have any idea when it's gonna be fully available in the app version for parents to be able to access?
That's more of a question for Michael.
I actually had a conversation with Michael Hubbard about that today. I anticipate that being here very, very near future. Actually had a conversation.
What we're working with them on that part is we want to coordinate and link up the ClassLink parent portal along with the Aspen parent portal. I talked to them yesterday, and we are looking at probably the middle of October is what I was told. But again, Michael Hubbard, his team is kind of in charge of that part of it. We just handle the technology on the back end and helping them link everything together.
But with that, I was asking, we were talking about the portal piece, and I think that they are at like some beta. They're probably going to identify some people to try to test and see how that works.
Correct.
They're at that point right now that I anticipate that being here very, very.
Yeah.
Thank you for all the hard work. Please extend the same thanks to all of the employees as well.
I will.
I have one question and then one comment. The question is, I see that we have a technology person pretty much dedicated to John Severe, obviously to the Dobbins Bennett. Why don't we have one for Dobbins Bennett?
We do. I just didn't put it in there. That's Dallas Rattle. I didn't put it on our, because I heard she is the dedicated role.
Okay. And then my comment is, nothing against you, is in the future, can you use more contrasting colors rather other than this green and white because I can't see.
Yeah.
Thank you. You guys will eventually learn all the colorblind parts.
It's true.
At least Mr. True knows he's not alone.
Any other comments, questions? Ms. Upshaw, don't want to leave you out.
No,
No.
it all sounds very good. Thank
All
you.
right, thank you, ma'am. Thank you for being with us. We stand adjourned. Thank you, Dr. Robinson.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye, Carrie. It's good to see you.
You're saying middle of October?
I don't know that it'll be that long. I don't think it'll be that long.
That was just kind of a
Yeah, that was